Where is it? I know I left the envelope here. Maybe it slipped behind something. Come on, please be here. Nothing, it's gone. The money is really gone. Selena, what's your problem?
Hey, baby, did you get it? I sent you $12,000 today, just like I promised.
Why did you take the money from my room?
Oh, please, Maribel. I only went into your room to borrow a phone charger because mine broke.
You went into my room?
I couldn't find a charger, but I did find an envelope stuffed with cash sitting in your drawer.
So you just took it? You stole $19,000 that wasn't yours?
Look, if money is just lying around the house, then it's family money, right? And I'm family. I found a better use for it, instead of letting it sit there collecting dust.
You what? How could you? I can't believe you do this.
My sister took the money from my room and spent it on herself. She thought I was going to cry, but I smiled. Then Dad came in shouting at me, "Where are the $19,000 we prepared for your sister's college?" She burst into tears. Well, let's go. My name is Maribel and I'm 24 years old. I still live with my parents even though I graduated from college 2 years ago and have a decent job at an insurance company. It's not that I can't afford my own place. I just never felt the rush to move out. My parents are good people and honestly living at home helps me save money. My younger sister Selena is 20 and in her second year of college. She lives in the next town over, about an hour's drive from our family home. Unlike me, she only comes back during holidays and breaks. Selena has it pretty easy. Our parents pay for everything. Her tuition, her rent, food, money, spending cash. Everything gets handed to her on a silver platter. When I was in college, things were different. I had to work part-time jobs to pay for my own food and rent. I was lucky enough to get a partial scholarship that covered 70% of my tuition. So, my parents only had to pay 30%. But I still remember those late nights working at the campus bookstore and weekend shifts at a local diner just to make ends meet. It wasn't fun, but it taught me the value of money. My parents, Mom and Dad, are both hardworking people. Dad works at a construction company as a supervisor, and Mom is a secretary at a law firm. They're not rich, but they've always managed to provide for our family. They own our house and have a small lakeside cabin that's been in the family for years. This year, though, money got tight. Dad had some health issues that kept him out of work for a few weeks, and Mom's hours got cut back. They started worrying about how they'd pay for Selena's education next year. I could see the stress on their faces when they thought nobody was looking. "We need to figure something out," I heard Mom tell Dad one evening when they thought I was upstairs. "Selena's tuition is due in 3 months, and we just don't have the money saved up like we usually do." Dad rubbed his forehead the way he always does when he's thinking hard. "What about the lakeside cabin? There's so much old stuff there that we never use anymore." That's when they came up with their plan. They decided to clean out the lakeside cabin and sell everything they could. Over the next 2 months, they worked every weekend going through decades of accumulated belongings. There was an old fishing boat that hadn't been used in years. Furniture from when my grandparents were alive, old appliances, tools, and boxes of random household items. They sold the boat to our neighbor, Mr. Clay, for $3,800. The old dining room set went to another neighbor for $1,200. Dad's collection of tools that he'd replaced over the years brought in another $1,600. Some of the furniture was in good enough condition to sell online, while other stuff they just sold for scrap metal. By the end of 2 months, they'd managed to sell almost everything. The total came to exactly $19,000 in cash. They kept it all in 20s, 50s, and hundreds in a large envelope. Selena had no idea this was happening since she was away at college the whole time. Last Tuesday morning, Dad called me into the kitchen before I left for work. He was holding that thick envelope and I could tell he was nervous about something. "Maribel, I need you to do me a favor," he said, placing the envelope on the table between us. "This is all the money from selling the stuff at the lakeside cabin. $19,000. I need you to deposit it in our family account at the bank today. I picked up the envelope and felt the weight of all that cash. Dad, this is a lot of money to be carrying around. Are you sure you want me to take it to work with me? I would do it myself, but I have back-to-back meetings all day and your mother has that important client presentation. You're the only one who can get to the bank during business hours. I looked at my watch. I had about 10 minutes before I needed to leave for work, and the bank didn't open until after I'd already be at the office. Actually, Dad, I can't make it to the bank today. I've got that big project deadline and my boss specifically said he needs me there all day. But tomorrow's my day off, so I can go to the bank first thing in the morning. Dad nodded. That's fine. Just keep it somewhere safe tonight. When I got to my room, I looked around for a good place to put the money. My dresser seemed too obvious, and I didn't want to leave it just lying around. I settled on the top drawer of my desk. It had a bunch of old college papers and notebooks in it, so the envelope would be hidden underneath everything. When I got home from work that evening, I walked through the front door and immediately froze. There was Selena strutting around our living room like she owned the place. But something was different. She was wearing clothes I'd never seen before. Expensive-looking jeans, a designer sweater, and boots that probably cost more than I made in a week. In her hands was a brand new phone, one of those latest models that cost over $1,200. Selena, I said, dropping my work bag by the door. When did you get home? And where did you get all that stuff? Did you actually get a job or something? Selena laughed, and it wasn't a nice laugh. Me work? Are you crazy? I'm not insane enough to get some crappy part-time job like you did in college. My stomach started to twist with a bad feeling. Then how did you pay for all this? Oh, I just borrowed some money from a secret location, she said with that same grin, waving her new phone around. Found myself a little treasure chest, you could say. Something clicked in my head. A cold, horrible realization washed over me. Without saying another word, I ran to my room, my heart pounding. I yanked open the desk drawer and frantically pushed aside all the papers and notebooks. The envelope was gone. The drawer was completely empty except for my old college stuff. I stared at the empty drawer for what felt like forever, but was probably only a few seconds. My hands were shaking as I searched through every single paper, hoping maybe the envelope had somehow slipped behind something. Nothing. It was really gone. I ran back to the living room where Selena was still admiring herself in the mirror, posing with her new phone. She was completely absorbed in taking selfies, acting like she didn't have a care in the world. Selena, I shouted, and she looked up, startled by my tone. What's your problem? She asked. But I could see something flicker in her eyes. Before I could answer, she got a call and picked up the phone. Yeah, baby. Did you get it? I sent you $12,000 today like I promised. She was saying in this sweet voice I'd never heard her use before. I know. No. You really needed it for those debts. Don't worry about paying it back right away. Just take care of what you need. $12,000. She'd sent someone $12,000 of my parents' money. I grabbed the phone right out of her hand and hung up. Why did you take the money from my room? Selena rolled her eyes like I was being ridiculous. Oh, please, Maribel. I went to your room to borrow a phone charger because mine broke. I couldn't find one, but I did find that envelope full of cash just sitting there in your drawer. So, you just took it. You just took $19,000 that wasn't yours. Look, if money is just lying around the house, that means it's family money, right? And I'm family. I found a good use for it instead of just letting it sit there collecting dust. She shrugged like it was the most logical thing in the world. I was so shocked I couldn't even speak for a moment. Then Selena did something that made my blood boil. She held up her new phone and took a picture of my face. You should see how crazy you look right now. She laughed. This is hilarious. Maybe next time don't leave money scattered around the house if you don't want people to use it. That's when I heard the front door open. Mom and Dad were home from work. What's going on here? Dad asked as he walked into the living room. He could probably tell from the tension that something was wrong. Selena took the money from my room and spent it all, I said, my voice coming out higher than I intended. Mom's face went white. What? Maribel, that's not funny. Don't joke about something like that. I'm not joking, Mom, I said. Look at all the stuff she bought. And I just heard her on the phone talking about sending $12,000 to someone. Selena's face had gone pale too, but she was still trying to play it off. Whose money was it anyway? She asked, but her voice wasn't as confident anymore. Dad's face was getting red, which was never a good sign. We sold everything from the lakeside cabin to get that money. It was for your college tuition next year. That was $19,000, Selena. Now Selena looked genuinely scared. Wait, what? You sold stuff from the cabin? We sold the boat, all the old furniture, Dad's tools, everything we could get rid of, Mom said, her voice shaking. We've been working on this for 2 months because we couldn't afford your tuition otherwise. That's when Selena completely lost it. She started screaming and pointing at me. I didn't take anything. Maribel spent the money herself and now she's trying to blame me. She's lying. I turned to my parents. How much money do you think she could have spent just on the clothes she's wearing right now? And look at those shopping bags on the couch. They're full of new clothes with the tags still on them. Dad walked over to the bags and started pulling out items. Designer jeans, expensive tops, a leather jacket that probably cost more than his weekly paycheck. There's more, I continued. I heard her on the phone telling someone she'd sent them $12,000 today. That's a lie, Selena screamed. She's making it all up. Pulled out my phone. Fine. I'm calling the police right now. I'll tell them about the theft of $19,000. They can track all your purchases on store security cameras and check all your bank transactions to see where the money went. Selena's face crumpled and she burst into tears. Okay, I took it. But I thought it was Maribel's savings. I thought it was money she had saved up from her job. I stared at her in complete disbelief. So, you thought my money was just free for you to take? You thought you could steal from me and there wouldn't be any consequences? Even Mom and Dad looked shocked by what she just admitted. Dad's voice was scary quiet. Selena, that was money for your college education. We don't have any other money saved up for you. What were you thinking? Selena was crying harder now. I can return the clothes to the stores. Most of them still have tags. What about the $12,000 you sent to someone? Ed asked. Who did you give our money to? Through her sobs, Selena managed to say, I sent it to my boyfriend Darren. He had gambling debts and people were threatening him. He promised he'd pay it back someday. Someday. Mom's voice was getting louder. Someday. And what else did you spend? I took my friends out to that expensive restaurant downtown. We spent about $2,000 there. That money is definitely gone. Mom sat down heavily on the couch. I have always defended you, Selena. Always. When Maribel complained about you taking her things, I told her to share. When you got in trouble at school, I made excuses for you. But today you have crossed every line possible. Selena ran out of the room crying, and I heard her bedroom door slam. Dinner that evening was the most uncomfortable meal our family had ever shared. Selena came down from her room with red puffy eyes, but she didn't say a word. She just sat there picking at her food while the rest of us ate in silence. Finally, Dad put down his fork and looked directly at Selena. Your mother and I have made a decision. We're not going to demand that you pay back the money you stole. Selena looked up with hope in her eyes, but Dad wasn't finished. However, you're going to take a gap year from college starting next semester. You'll get a job and earn your own tuition money from now on. We won't be giving you another cent for education or anything else. But, Dad, I can't make that much money, Selena protested. College is expensive. You should have thought about that before you gave away $19,000, Dad said firmly. This decision is final and not open for discussion. Selena started crying again, but I couldn't help feeling satisfied. Finally, she was going to face some real consequences for her actions. That night, around midnight, I heard a soft knock on my bedroom door. It was Selena, and she looked desperate. Maribel, please, I need to ask you something, she whispered, glancing back toward our parents' room. What do you want? Could you lend me the $19,000? I promise I'll pay you back as soon as I graduate and get a real job. Please, you know how important college is to me. I stared at her in amazement. Are you seriously asking me to give you money after what you did today? After you stole from our parents and ruined their plans? Come on, Maribel. We're sisters. Family helps family, right? No, Selena. Absolutely not. You made your choice today. She stood there for a moment looking hurt, then turned and ran back to her room. I heard her door slam again. As I lay in bed trying to fall asleep, I started thinking about all the other times Selena had done stuff like this. When we were kids, she used to take my toys without asking. In high school, she'd borrow my clothes and sometimes return them damaged or not at all. She even used to steal money from my piggy bank when I was saving up for something special. Every time I complained to Mom and Dad, they'd say the same thing. She's your little sister, Maribel. She doesn't mean any harm. You need to learn to share. She probably needed it for something important. It made me wonder, would my parents be this upset if Selena had stolen my savings instead of their money? Or would they still be making excuses for her? The next morning at breakfast, Selena tried a different approach. She came downstairs looking remorseful and spoke in a small, apologetic voice. I'm really sorry about yesterday. I know what I did was wrong and I promise I'll never do anything like that again. Dad didn't even look up from his coffee. Sorry doesn't change our decision. Selena, you're not getting another penny from us for school or rent. But I can't possibly make enough money to pay for everything myself. That's something you should have considered before you spent our money, Dad replied coldly. This conversation is over. Later that morning, Selena made a big show of packing her bags. She threw her clothes into suitcases loudly, making sure everyone could hear her stomping around upstairs. Then she dragged everything to the front door. Fine, she announced dramatically. If you don't want me here, I'll go live somewhere else where people actually care about me. And with that she left. We didn't hear from her for an entire day. The next afternoon the phone rang. It was Grandma and she sounded upset. Maribel, what happened over there? Selena called me crying, saying you all kicked her out of the house and won't let her finish college properly. She says you're the one who got her in trouble with your parents. I handed the phone to Dad, who explained the whole situation to Grandma. When he was finished, there was a long silence on the other end. Oh my goodness, Grandma finally said. I had no idea. Selena made it sound like you were all being unfair to her. She asked me to lend her money for school. What did you tell her? Ed asked. I told her I'd think about it, but after hearing this story, there's no way I'm giving her a dime. In fact, I'm going to check my house right now to make sure she didn't take anything when she visited last month. Over the next few days, our phone kept ringing. Aunt Diane called asking why Selena was begging her for money. Uncle Victor called because Selena had shown up at his house with some story about needing help with college expenses. Cousin Hannah called because Selena had asked her to co-sign for a student loan. Each time my parents had to explain the real story. Each time the relatives were shocked and refused to help Selena. A week later, Selena came back home on her own. She looked defeated and exhausted. I went to everyone, she admitted, slumping into a chair in our living room. All the relatives, my college friends, even some of Darren's friends. Nobody would help me. Are you surprised? Mas. Look, I'll do what Dad wants. I'll take the gap year and work. But can I at least stay here so I don't have to pay rent? If I have to pay for my own apartment too, I'll never save enough for college. Mom and Dad looked at each other, having one of their silent conversations that married couples do. You can stay, Dad finally said. But you follow our rules, and you don't ask us for money for anything. 2 months after all this drama, I finally decided it was time to move out of my parents' house. I found a nice 1-bedroom apartment about 20 minutes away and got all my stuff moved in over a weekend. It felt good to finally have my own space, especially after everything that had happened. Mom called me a few weeks later with an update on Selena. She got a job as a waitress at that family restaurant downtown. She's actually working really hard. She gives us her entire paycheck every week and only keeps her tips for spending money. I was surprised to hear that Selena was actually following through on working, but I was glad she was finally learning some responsibility. She sighed and rubbed her forehead. It's hard work. My feet hurt all the time and some customers are really rude, but I'm getting better at it. Mom came into the kitchen and gave me a hug. Maribel, perfect timing. I was just about to tell Selena about the new account we opened for her. What account? Yes. Dad joined us in the kitchen carrying his coffee mug. We opened a special savings account for Selena. Every week when she brings us her paycheck, we deposit the entire amount into that account. She only keeps her tips for daily expenses. The tips aren't much, Selena added. Maybe $60 a week. I had to sell my new phone and get a cheap one just to have enough money for basic stuff. I noticed she was holding an old flip phone, the kind people used 10 years ago. It was quite a change from that expensive smartphone she'd bought with our parents' money. We told Selena that she can't touch the money in that account for a full year, Mom explained. After 12 months, we'll give her access to it and then she can decide what she wants to do. What do you mean decide what to do? Yes. Dad's expression got serious. She can either use the money to go back to college or she can give it to that boyfriend of hers. But if she chooses the boyfriend, she's out of this house permanently. I looked at Selena to see her reaction, but she just nodded like she understood. Speaking of Darren, Mom said, lowering her voice even though it was just family in the room. I overheard Selena talking to him on the phone last week. He was asking her for money again. What did you tell him? Asked Selena. I told him I don't have any money to give him. He got really angry and said I was being selfish. Selena's voice was quiet. He keeps saying that if I really loved him, I'd find a way to help him with his debts. And what do you think about that? Asked. Selena was quiet for a long moment. I think maybe Darren only likes me when I can give him things. 4 months later, I found out that Selena had broken up with Darren. Mom called to tell me the news. She said he kept pressuring her for money, even after she explained that she didn't have access to her savings account. When she refused to ask us for money, he started getting mean with her. Good for her, I said, and I meant it. Did he ever pay back that $12,000? Yes. Mom laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. Of course not. Selena finally realized he never intended to pay it back. She said he told her that money between couples should be freely shared, and that asking for it back showed she didn't trust him. I was angry all over again thinking about that money, but I was also proud of Selena for finally seeing Darren for what he was. When Selena's 21st birthday came around in December, I went to the bank and withdrew $600 in cash. I put it in a birthday card and gave it to her when we had her birthday dinner at my parents' house. Selena opened the card and stared at the money for a long time without saying anything. Thank you, she finally whispered, and I could see tears in her eyes. But then she did something that shocked me. Instead of keeping the money, she handed it to Dad. Can you put this in my account too? She asked. I want to save every penny I can. Dad looked as surprised as I felt, but he nodded and took the money. After Selena left the room, my parents and I sat around the table talking. It was the first really honest conversation we'd had in years. You know, we messed up with Selena, Mom admitted. We spoiled her terribly. We always made excuses for her behavior and never made her face consequences. Remember when she used to take money from Maribel's piggy bank? Ed asked. We told Maribel to stop complaining because Selena was just a little kid. We taught Selena that she could take whatever she wanted. I'm glad you finally see it, I said. But I'm also glad you're fixing it now, even if it took something this big to wake everyone up. All this time, my parents had been working on fixing up the lakeside cabin. They'd been going there on weekends, painting and making repairs. In July, they invited me and Selena to spend a week there for a family vacation. It was the first time we'd all been at the cabin together since they'd sold everything. The place looked completely different, cleaner, brighter, with new furniture they'd bought to replace what they'd sold. On the third night of our vacation, Selena and I were sitting on the porch looking out at the water. The sun was setting and everything was peaceful. You know, I never really understood about money before, Selena said suddenly. But now I know how hard it is to earn even $50. When I see something that costs $100, I think about how that's 2 days of work for me. That's a good way to think about it, I said. I keep thinking about that $19,000 and how many hours Mom and Dad worked to earn it. And I just gave it away like it was nothing. Her voice was getting shaky. That was probably months and months of work for them. It was, I confirmed. They worked extra hours and weekends to save up that money. I wish I could take it back, she said. All of it. The money, the way I treated you, everything. You can't take it back, I told her. But you can make sure you never do anything like that again. I won't, she said firmly. I swear I won't. Looking at my sister in the fading sunlight, I believed her. She looked different now, not just because of the plain clothes and lack of makeup, but because something had changed in her eyes. She looked like someone who finally understood that actions have consequences. Selena, I said, I'm proud of how hard you've been working. She smiled, and it was the first genuine smile I'd seen from her in months. Thanks, Maribel. That actually means a lot coming from you. As we sat there watching the river flow by, I realized that maybe this whole terrible situation had been exactly what our family needed. It had forced all of us to face some hard truths and make some difficult changes. And maybe, just maybe, we were all going to be better people because of it.
Celeste, guess what? I quit my job. You what? Janine, what are you talking about? I just couldn't do it anymore. I'm finally free. Oh my God, are you serious? Straight into my manager's office this morning and told him I was done. No 2 weeks notice, nothing. I'm finally free. Janine, how are you going to pay your rent? How are you going to take care of Lyle and Trent? Oh, don't worry about that. What do you mean, don't worry? It's all taken care of, trust me. You're going to support me financially until I rest, get my strength back, and find something better. I'm sorry, what? Come on, Celeste. I've been working nonstop since the divorce. I'm exhausted. I deserve a break. Janine, you make good money. You can cover my expenses for a while, just until I figure things out. You seriously expect me to pay your bills because you quit your job?
I'm quitting my job. You'll support me and my kids, said my sister. I said no and moved to another state. A month later, Mom wrote, "Come back or we'll disown you." So I stopped all financial support and watched them panic. Well, let's go. My name is Celeste and I'm 32 years old. I worked as a sales rep for this big trading company and made decent money. Enough to get a mortgage on a small house that I absolutely loved. It wasn't huge or anything, but it was mine and in a really good neighborhood. I had my parents, of course, and an older sister named Janine, who was 35. Janine had just gotten divorced from her husband a few months back and had 2 kids. My nephews Lyle and Trent, ages 8 and 10. Even though Janine worked, she barely made enough to cover her rent and expenses, so I'd been helping her out with money pretty regularly. I mean, what else was I supposed to do? She was struggling. But honestly, this had been the pattern my whole life. My parents always favored Janine because she was the oldest. When we were kids and I was really good at math, they'd make me do Janine's homework for her instead of making her learn it herself. When Janine wanted to take piano lessons, but I wanted to take them too, they said we could only afford one and gave them to her. When I got straight A's and Janine got C's, my parents would tell me I needed to help Janine study more instead of congratulating me. When Janine turned 16, my parents bought her a car. When I turned 16, they said I could share it with her, but it was really hers. When we both applied to colleges, they paid for Janine's tuition in full, but told me I'd need to take out loans because Janine needed more help. The list went on and on. So, when my phone rang that Tuesday morning and I saw Janine's name, I figured she needed money again. But when I answered, she sounded different. Happy. Really happy. "Celeste, guess what? I quit my job," Janine said, practically singing the words. I almost dropped my coffee. You what? Janine, what are you talking about? I quit. I walked right into my manager's office this morning and told him I was done. No more 2 weeks' notice. Nothing. I'm free. My stomach dropped. Janine, how are you going to pay rent? How are you going to feed Lyle and Trent? She laughed like I just told the funniest joke in the world. Oh, don't worry about that. You're going to support me financially until I rest up, get my strength back, and find something better. I stared at my phone like it was broken. I'm sorry. What? I'm going to what now? Come on, Celeste. I've been working non-stop since the divorce. I'm exhausted. I deserve a break. You make good money. You can cover my expenses for a while. Just until I figure things out. Janine, I'm not going to support you. That's insane. You have 2 kids and responsibilities. Her voice got that sharp edge it always got when she didn't get her way. Well, if you won't help me willingly, I'll just call Mom and Dad. They'll make you do the right thing. And then she hung up on me. I sat there holding my phone, feeling that familiar sick feeling in my stomach. The same feeling I'd gotten as a kid when Janine would threaten to tell on me if I didn't do what she wanted. That's what she always did when she wanted something. Run to Mommy and Daddy to make me give in. About 30 minutes later, my phone rang again. Celeste and Graham. What is wrong with you? Mom's voice was already at full volume before I even said hello. Hi, Mom. What are you talking about? Don't play dumb with me. Janine called me crying. She said you refused to help her when she needs you most. How could you be so selfish? Mom, Janine quit her job without having another one lined up. She expects me to pay all her bills while she takes a vacation. That's not reasonable. She's not taking a vacation. She's been through a terrible divorce and she needs time to recover. You have a good job and a house. The least you can do is help your sister. Help her. Support her completely while she chooses not to work. No. Well, that's too bad because we've already decided. Janine and the boys are moving in with you. You have that big bedroom upstairs. They can stay there. I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. They're what? Mom, nobody asked me about this. We're not asking, Celeste. We're telling you. Janine needs a place to stay and you have the room. This is my house, Mom. My house that I pay the mortgage on. Family helps family. Celeste, Janine would do the same for you. No, she wouldn't. Janine had never done anything for me that she didn't have to do. But I knew there was no point in arguing with Mom when she'd already made up her mind. Then Dad got on the phone. Celeste, you need to clean out that bedroom. The boys will need space for their stuff. Dad, I don't want anyone living in my house. Too bad. Janine's your sister and those are your nephews. Stop being so damn selfish. After they hung up, I sat in my car in the parking lot at work and tried not to cry. This was exactly how it had always been. Janine did whatever she wanted, and I was expected to deal with the consequences. She quit her job on a whim and somehow it became my problem to solve. That's when I remembered something. 4 months ago, my boss had offered me a transfer to our company's office in the next state over. I turned it down because I just bought my house and didn't want to move. But what if that position was still open? I walked back into the office and knocked on my boss's door. Hey, Martin, remember that offer you made me about transferring to the Boise office? Is that position still available? It is. Why are you interested now? Very interested. When could I start? Martin leaned back in his chair and smiled. Hell, Celeste, you could start next week if you wanted to. I've been holding that spot hoping you'd change your mind. Then yes, I want to transfer. All right then. I'll make the calls. You can start Monday if that works for you. As soon as I left Martin's office, I called my friend Drew, who worked in real estate. Drew, I need a favor. Can you find tenants for my house? Good ones who will pay on time and take care of the place. Sure, but why? You just bought that house. Long story, but I need to move quickly. Like this week, quickly. I'll see what I can do. I spent the rest of that day making lists and plans. If my family thought they could just steamroll over me and make decisions about my life without even asking, they had another thing coming. I moved fast. Really fast. I knew my parents and Janine could show up at my house any day with suitcases and expect me to just roll over and let them take over my life. So I had exactly 1 week to get out. I called in sick for the rest of that week and spent every waking hour packing. I kept only what I absolutely needed. Clothes, important documents, my laptop, and a few personal items. Everything else went into storage or stayed with the house for the tenants. Drew came through for me big time. By Thursday, he'd found a married couple with 1 kid who were looking for a house to rent in my neighborhood. They seemed nice enough when I met them. The husband worked in IT, the wife was a teacher, and their daughter was about 7. They could move in immediately and were willing to pay first and last month's rent up front. I signed the lease agreement with them on Friday morning. They'd transfer the rent money directly to my bank account every month. It felt surreal renting out the house I'd worked so hard to buy, but I knew it was the right move. By Friday afternoon, I was loading my car with the last of my stuff. I'd already shipped boxes ahead to Boise and found a decent apartment online that I could rent month to month. Saturday morning, I drove to Boise and started my new job on Monday. The office was smaller than the one back home, but the people seemed nice and the work was basically the same. Martin had given me a great recommendation, so my new boss was happy to have me. I spent Tuesday setting up my new apartment, just basics like groceries and getting the internet connected. Felt weird being in a completely different state, but also kind of freeing. For the first time in my adult life, my family couldn't just drop by whenever they wanted to dump their problems on me. Wednesday afternoon, Drew called me. "Celeste, I've got good news and potentially dramatic news." "Hit me with the good news first." "Your tenants are settled in." "Great. They love the house and already transferred this month's rent." "Nice people." "And the dramatic news?" "Well, yesterday afternoon a woman showed up at your house with 2 kids and what looked like half a U-Haul truck full of stuff. Started banging on the door demanding to be let in." My stomach dropped even though I'd been expecting this. "Let me guess, my sister Janine." "I'm assuming so." The tenants called me because they didn't know what to do. This woman was screaming that it was her sister's house and she had every right to live there. The tenants explained they were renting from you and you'd moved, but she wouldn't listen. "What happened?" "Eventually, an older couple showed up too. I'm guessing your parents. They all had a big argument on your front lawn. The neighbors were starting to come out and watch. Finally they left, but they took down my number from the rental sign." I laughed. I'd been dreading this confrontation, but now that it was happening, it felt almost funny. They'd driven all the way to my house expecting to just move in and instead found strangers living there. "Did they call you?" "Oh yeah. The older woman, your mom, called me about an hour later, demanding to know where you went. I told her I couldn't give out that information, but she kept yelling that I had to tell her because you were her daughter and she had a right to know." That night the call started. First Mom tried calling me. I saw her name on my phone and just let it go to voicemail. Then Dad called. Then Janine called. I ignored all of them. Then the texts started coming in. "Mom, Celeste, call me right now. We went to your house and strangers are living there. Where are you?" "Dad, this is ridiculous. Celeste, call us back immediately." "Janine, I can't believe you would do this to me. I have nowhere to live and you just disappeared." I turned my phone on silent and went to bed. The next morning I had 12 missed calls and 23 text messages. I scrolled through them while drinking my coffee. "Janine, the tenant said you moved somewhere but wouldn't say where. This is so messed up." "Mom, you better explain yourself right now, young lady." "Dad, you can't just run away from your responsibilities." "Janine, Lyle and Trent are asking where Aunt Celeste went. What am I supposed to tell them?" I finally decided to respond, but only to Mom. I sent one simple text. "Moved. Stop looking for me." A few hours passed and I thought maybe that would be the end of it. But that evening, Mom texted back, "If you don't come home right now and let Janine live with you, we're disowning you. You're not our daughter anymore." I stared at that text for a long time. Part of me felt hurt even though I'd been expecting something like this, but mostly I felt relieved. If they wanted to disown me for not letting them control my life, then fine. Texted back. Go ahead. The next few days were quiet. No calls, no texts. I started to think maybe they'd actually given up. But then Janine posted something on Facebook that made me realize this was far from over. Her post said, well, I guess I know where I stand with some people. I quit my job because I was burned out and needed time to recover from my divorce, and my own sister refused to help me. Now I have no income and nowhere to live with my 2 young children. Some family support system, right? I guess money is more important than family to some people. The comments started rolling in almost immediately. Janine's friends were all over it. Janine, that's horrible. Your sister sounds selfish AF. Family should always come first, so sorry you're going through this. Some people forget where they came from. Even Mom liked this post. It was unpleasant. But then some of our relatives started commenting too, and they weren't all on Janine's side. Our cousin Bridget wrote, wait, didn't you quit your job without having another one lined up? And don't you get alimony for the boys? Uncle Roy commented, Janine, you chose to quit your job. That's not Celeste's responsibility to fix. Aunt Melanie added, I love you both, but Celeste shouldn't have to support you indefinitely just because you decided to take a break from working. The comments got pretty heated. Janine's friends kept defending her, but more and more relatives were pointing out that she'd put herself in this situation. She was getting child support from her ex-husband for Lyle and Trent, so it wasn't like the kids would starve. That evening I was sitting in my new apartment thinking about everything that had happened. That's when I remembered something important. About 6 months ago, my parents had called me with money problems. Dad's company had laid off a bunch of people and cut his hours to part-time. Mom worked at a department store but didn't make much. They were struggling to pay their mortgage and asked if I could help them out temporarily. Being the good daughter, I'd set up an automatic transfer to send them $900 every month to help cover their mortgage payment. I'd been doing it for months without really thinking about it. But now that Mom had literally told me they were disowning me and Janine had posted this accusation, I figured I didn't owe strangers anything. I opened my banking app and canceled the automatic transfer. Then I took a screenshot of the cancellation confirmation and sent it to both my parents with a simple message. Since you disowned me, I won't be paying strangers' mortgage anymore. My phone rang about 3 minutes later. This time I answered. Celeste, what did you just do? Mom was screaming so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. You can't do this to us. We need that money. Without it, we can't make our mortgage payment. That sounds like a you problem, Mom. I heard her start crying. Celeste, please. Janine and the boys are living with us now because she has nowhere else to go. We can't afford to feed them and pay the mortgage without your help. Then maybe Janine should get a job. She's still recovering from her divorce. She needs time. She needs income. She has 2 kids to feed. Your father only works part-time now. It's not enough. Then maybe Dad should find a full-time job or a second job like normal people do when they have money problems. Mom was crying harder now. How can you be so cruel? This is all your fault. If you just let Janine stay with you like we planned, none of this would have happened. My fault. Janine quit her job without having another one lined up. That's nobody's fault but hers. And you guys decided to support her instead of telling her to be responsible. That's your choice. She's family. So am I. But that didn't stop you from disowning me when I wouldn't do what you wanted. We didn't mean it. Too late. Mom, you made your choice. I hung up and turned off my phone. I was shaking a little bit, but I also felt something I hadn't felt in years. Free. For the first time in my adult life, I'd stood up to my family and said no. The next 2 weeks were blissfully quiet. I threw myself into work and started exploring Boise. It was actually a pretty cool city. I was making good money, plus getting rental income from my house back home. I was doing better financially than I ever had. Then Martin, my old boss, called me. Celeste, I need to tell you about something weird that happened today. My stomach tightened. What happened? Your mother came to my office and demanded to see me. I nearly dropped my phone. She what? She said I needed to make you send money to your family. Oh my God. What did she say exactly? She said you were being irresponsible and selfish, and that as your boss, I needed to either convince you to send them money or just take it directly out of your paycheck and send it to her. I was mortified. Martin, I am so sorry. I had no idea she would do something like that. Hey, don't worry about it. I told her that what you do with your money is none of my business and none of the company's business. I also told her that what she was suggesting sounded like theft. How did she react to that? She started crying and saying her family was going to lose their house. I felt bad for her, but there's nothing I can do. I just wanted to give you a heads up in case she tries anything else. After Martin hung up, I sat there feeling sick. Mom had actually gone to my old workplace and tried to get my boss to steal money from my paycheck. That was a new low, even for her. I spent the rest of that evening thinking about what to do. They were clearly not going to leave me alone. Janine was living with my parents along with her 2 kids. None of them were working full-time, and they all expected me to fund their lifestyle. That's when I decided to write them an email. I spent 2 hours writing it, making sure every word was clear. Mom, Dad, and Janine. Today my former boss called to tell me that Mom came to his office demanding he steal money from my paycheck to send to you. This is harassment and it needs to stop immediately. I am documenting every call, every text message, and every attempt to contact my employers or interfere with my work. If any of you continue to harass me, contact my workplace or demand money from me, I will file for a restraining order. I have evidence of harassment, including the call log from my phone, the text messages demanding money, and testimony from my former boss about Mom's visit to his office. You told me I was disowned and no longer your daughter. Accepted that. Now leave me alone. Any further contact will be considered harassment and will be reported to the police. I sent the email to all 3 of them and then blocked their phone numbers. 3 days passed without any contact. Then a week. Then 2 weeks. I started to think maybe the threat of legal action had finally gotten through to them. Maybe they'd realized I was serious about being left alone. My cousin Bridget called me one evening to check in. Hey Celeste. How are you doing in Boise? I'm doing really well actually. How are things back home? Well, your family is definitely struggling. Your dad had to get a second part-time job at a grocery store and Janine went back to work. Your mom keeps telling everyone that you abandoned the family. But honestly, most people think Janine brought this on herself. What do you think? Bridget was quiet for a moment. I think you did what you had to do. Your family was taking advantage of you, and they needed to learn they couldn't just make decisions about your life without asking you. After we hung up, I felt vindicated. Janine was working again. Dad was working more. They were all taking responsibility for their own lives instead of expecting me to fix everything for them. 3 months had passed since I sent that email threatening legal action. 3 months of complete silence from my family. 3 months of the most peaceful life I'd ever had. I was sitting in my favorite coffee shop in Boise on a Saturday morning, looking through apartment listings online. The rental income from my house back home was coming in like clockwork every month. My tenants were great. They took care of the place and never bothered me with stupid complaints. Combined with my salary from the new job, I was making more money than I ever had in my life. I'd been thinking about buying an apartment here in Boise. With the rental income helping to cover a mortgage payment, I could actually afford something really nice, something that would be completely mine where nobody could show up and demand to live with me. My phone buzzed with a text from Bridget. Hope you're doing well. Thought you should know what's going on back here. I called her back. Hey, what's the update? Well, your dad is working 2 jobs now. His part-time office job during the day and stocking shelves at the grocery store 3 nights a week. He looks tired, but they're managing to pay their bills. And Janine is not happy. She's working full-time at that call center and absolutely hates it. She's living with your parents still, which your mom says is really cramped. Janine and the boys are all squeezed into your old bedroom, and apparently there's constant fighting over space and privacy. Sounds like a nightmare. Your mom is working overtime at the department store too. She looks older, Celeste. Like this whole situation has really aged her. I felt a tiny pang of guilt but pushed it away. They created this situation. Bridget, all of this could have been avoided if they just treated me like an adult instead of assuming they could make decisions about my life. I know. And honestly, most of the family agrees with you. Even Grandma said the other day that your parents spoiled Janine too much, and this was bound to happen eventually. After we hung up, I sat there thinking about everything that had happened. 6 months ago, I'd been trapped in this cycle where my family's problems automatically became my problems. Janine made bad decisions and I was expected to fix them. My parents had money troubles and I was expected to solve them. Now Janine was working full-time and taking care of her own responsibilities. My parents were working harder to pay their own bills, and I was living my own life without constantly worrying about what crisis I'd have to handle next. I looked back at the apartment listings on my laptop. There was this really nice 2-bedroom condo for sale about 10 minutes from my office. It had a balcony overlooking the foothills and an updated kitchen. The monthly mortgage payment would be manageable with my salary and rental income combined. I called the realtor and scheduled a viewing for Monday. That afternoon, I got an email notification that this month's rent had been deposited into my account. I logged into my banking app and looked at my balance. Between my salary and the rental income, I was saving more money than I'd ever been able to save before. When I was living in my hometown, I'd been sending Janine money every month, plus the $900 to my parents for their mortgage. That was over $1,200 a month that I was giving away instead of saving for my own future. No wonder I'd always felt financially stressed. Now I could actually think about things like retirement savings and building real wealth. I'd opened an investment account and started putting money away every month. For the first time in my adult life, I was planning for my own future instead of just reacting to other people's emergencies. I spent Sunday evening researching the neighborhood where that condo was located. Good schools, low crime rate, lots of restaurants and shops within walking distance. It would be perfect. Monday morning I met the realtor at the condo. It was even better in person. Hardwood floors, big windows, and that view of the foothills was incredible. I could picture myself living there. We spent the next hour going over paperwork and discussing financing. With my income and the rental property, I qualified for a great mortgage rate. I could put down 20% and still have plenty left in savings for emergencies. That evening I submitted an offer on the condo. The seller accepted it the next day. A week later, Bridget called with more updates from home. Janine is telling everyone who'll listen that you ruined her life, Bridget said, laughing. How did I ruin her life? She's working and supporting her kids like a normal adult. That's exactly what I said to her. But she's convinced that if you just let her live with you for a few months, she could have found some amazing job and everything would be perfect now. Or she would have spent months sitting on my couch watching Netflix while I paid all her bills probably. Bridget chuckled. But she can't admit that to herself. It's easier to blame you than to admit she made bad choices. And your parents are still working their butts off to pay the bills. Your mom mentioned you sometimes but not as much as she used to. I think they're starting to accept that you're not coming back. Good, because I'm not. 2 weeks later I closed on the condo. I stood in my new living room looking out at the foothills and felt something I'd never really felt before. Complete independence. My phone was quiet. No calls demanding money. No texts asking me to solve someone else's problems. No guilt trips about family obligations. I'd learned something important over the past few months. Setting boundaries wasn't cruel or selfish. It was necessary. My family had been taking advantage of my willingness to help, and they'd probably have kept doing it forever if I hadn't finally said no. Now Janine was working and paying her own way. My parents were handling their own financial problems. And I was building a life that was actually mine. A life where I could breathe. A life where I could dream about the future instead of being trapped in the past. I closed the curtains that evening, poured myself a glass of wine, and sat on my balcony. The sky was streaked in orange and purple as the sun set over Boise. For the first time in my 32 years I felt proud of myself, not for what I did for others but for what I had finally done for me.